My wife is very creative. It's part of the gifting that God's given her. One of the results of her creativity is that there's usually something in process at home. Something is being changed. Just when I've got used to where something is or how something looks, Jax will get unused to it and say, I think we need to change this a little bit. And so she at home has responsibility because of her giftings in that area, which means that my tools in my garage have come into use. At home, in this department, I'm the worker, and she is the instructor. She guides me and tells me what I need to do. So for today, I went and just picked out a few tools to bring them along as part of an illustration for my message today. Pretty much everybody knows what these are. That's a hammer with a distinct use. Screwdrivers with different heads, because a flat screwdriver and a star or Phillips screwdriver, very different uses. Although they look the same, that part of them, this part is very different and unique. This boykie over here, he's been with me for quite a few years. The yellow, which started out bright, is a lot more faded. Then you've got clamps. I think that the design of this clamp is so amazing, because nothing else on this table can clamp like this boykie can. Very different uses to the hammer, etc. This tape measure, any tape measure, I think it's incredible that you got rolled up in a little thingy like that, and you can measure exactly how long something needs to be and compare it to something else. And as I was taught, measure twice, cut once. So I've got a few of these because I often lose them. And then when I was a boy, I think the first person I ever saw use a spirit level was my grandfather. He ran a kind of handyman stroke construction business. And I just thought, as a little guy, I just thought it was the cleverest idea in the world that somebody would trap a bubble inside of a steel piece, and that when that bubble sat directly between the two black lines, you knew that that was horizontal. And then that clever person or people went on to trap another bubble that you can measure something that was absolutely vertical. So let's say that at night, once the garage door is closed, the tools all get to talking, and they start to discuss which of us is most important. Which of these tools here, any tools in the garage, which of them are the most important ones? Well, the hammer might say, look, when it comes to knocking in nails, I'm sorry, measuring tape, but you don't have a chance. The measuring tape says, well, hammer, you're not very good at measuring anything that's beyond your length. And look how neatly I roll up. The spirit level would say, yeah, but guys, the thing that Jackie is most concerned about is that everything is straight. And when you guys are finished your work, generally things are skew. It's up to me to get it all looking right. I'm the most important tool. And the clamp says, you know what, guys? Every time something is glued or need to be held in place, all of you guys are pretty useless at that. I was specially designed. Look at my bright colors. Look at my fancy little handle that moves me along. Steve would be stuck without me. Which of them would be correct in terms of their use? Well, all of them are right, that they've got different functions. Which of them is most important? Whichever tool I need right at that minute, that is the most important one to me. But as I've discovered, as you start projects, you realize, boy, this thing doesn't work well without exactly the right tool for the job. Would you turn with me then, if you could hold that? Well, I'm going to leave it on the table there, so it'll be in front of us. But I'm going to speak this morning from Romans chapter 12. You'll probably recognize verse 2 from the series that we did last year, our Transformed series. So if you have a Bible, wouldn't you turn with me to Romans chapter 12 and verse 2. And we're going to read down to verse 8. Paul writes this. He says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Just out of interest, how many people were here 1 year ago as part of our Transformed series? It was a great series, wasn't it? And it was based on this verse, Romans 12, verse 2. Don't stay as you are, but change by allowing God to metamorphosize, if you like, your mind. And then going on to verse 3 through to 8, which is my text for today. Paul says this, for by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, he's writing to us down the centuries, he says, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us has one body with many members, i.e. arms, legs, eyes, etc., and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. It's a very interesting phrase used there. Each member, each person belongs to all the others in a church, a local church, a church body. Verse 6, we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. There's 7 things listed here, incidentally, and we're going to tackle just briefly each of these 7 gifts. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, if your gift is giving, give generously. If your gift is leadership, if it's to lead, do it diligently. If it's to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Now, 3 introductory comments from these verses, and then I'm going to briefly tackle those 7, just to give you a bit of a roadmap. The rest of the service looks a little bit different to our normal Sunday service. I'm going to speak what I've just said. We're then going to switch gears a little bit, and I hope that on your seat, you would have got these 2 forms. At the end of the service, I'm going to quickly go through this and invite you to fill it out in terms of using your gifts, and we're going to talk a little bit about better together. Between those 2 things, in other words, me speaking and coming to these, I'm going to invite Nikki up for a few minutes to talk about our CityHill Kids Ministry. I know there's a whole lot of people new to the church, new to town, and for those that have been around a long time, just to get a little insight into the amazing gifts of service that are happening at CityHill Kids and the wonderful program our kids enjoy there. So by way of 3 introductory comments from these verses, the first one is this, is that God has uniquely gifted each of us. Essentially, He's gifted us because He's generous. This is the verse that we read a little earlier, Romans chapter 12 and verse 6. He says, we have different gifts according to the grace given each of us. So when, let's say that one manufacturer was able to design all of these tools. The manufacturer picked a certain amount of steel in a certain shape, plastic, rubber, to form this hammer. But when it comes to designing a flat screwdriver, it's a different shape with a different purpose, but still using rubber and steel. Does that make sense? Or metal, etc., etc. The picture I get from these verses is when God came to designing every single one of us, because He's so generous and because He's so creative, He designs every single one of us absolutely uniquely with different mixes of different grace and different gifts. The reason we've got anything is because He's generous. The reason you and I took our first breath when we were born is because God's generous with oxygen. The reason you and I are able to think is because He's generous with mental capacity and relational capacity, etc. The reason we've got clothes on and if you've got money in your pocket is because God's a generous God. Everything you and I have, if you trace it back, is because He's generous. And He's given us different gifts and different abilities. At home, I mentioned already, Jackie's creative ability and mine are in very different spheres. My creativity shines elsewhere, but I don't try and get too creative when I'm doing any tasks in our house because they generally don't look that good. Parenting's a great place to see this different and unique gifts. For anybody here who's a parent, take, in our case, 2 children raised in exactly the same home by the same parents, desperately trying to figure things out for each of them. These boys are so incredibly different. They've got such different, unique gifts and grace. We sometimes look at each other and say, this is amazing. The differences, and yet they're both ours. When God created each one of us, it's like He ladled into the mix of our lives gifts that were very unique. And one of the worst things I could therefore do is by comparing myself to others, end up feeling completely discouraged. Because actually, I've been gifted uniquely by God because of His generosity. The second thing these verses teach is that we are to be aware of and willing to use our gifts. Highlighted those two big words, aware and willing. That's what this verse is about. Now, so Paul's speaking essentially about self-awareness. He says, you think of yourself with sober judgment. What that means, I think, is that it's possible to think too much of yourself. To think, you know what, I'm the hammer, and I can do just about everything in this project. That's thinking too much of yourself. Thinking too little of myself is to think, well, I've got nothing to give, and I could never be of any use. And actually what Paul's saying is, let's think of ourselves with sober judgment. Don't get arrogant and think that you or I have got the gift that the world needs. No, we have a gift that the church needs. If we think too lowly of ourselves, what happens is we get unwilling. We say, well, no, thank you. I'd rather not be involved. I don't think I could bring anything to the table anyway. It seems like people are already doing stuff. I'm just going to hide myself. Imagine if my one and only spirit level developed a complex or got a little bit discouraged because for a few projects, they were hammer, clamp, and screwdriver type projects. And so while it's hanging there on its nail, carefully punched in by the hammer just for it to hang, it says to itself, you know what? I don't really count for anything in this garage. The last 6 months, my bubbles have just sat dead still. I know I'm hanging vertical and I can measure horizontal, but it seems like if I was a hammer, then I would be useful. No. That's thinking too lowly of yourself. Thinking too highly of yourself would be the other way around, saying, pick me to hammer in things, to saw wood, etc. No spirit level. You've been given a specific set of gifts and designs. Where's your place and where's your fit and how are you going to use those gifts? We need to be aware and willing. Unaware and willing is one kind of bad. Aware and unwilling is a different kind of bad. And the worst kind of bad, unaware and unwilling. I'll let you figure all of that out. The third thing this verse seems to indicate is that all of this, in other words, me recognizing God's gifted us, each of us uniquely, me being aware and willing to use my gifts, as soon as I start using my gifts in the right settings, in the right ways, it results in three things as far as I understand the New Testament. Number one, it results in me being fruitful. Me finding the fit. It's like if I'm a square peg, I need to find the square hole. I become fruitful. Secondly, others end up built up. And thirdly, out of all of this, and most importantly, God gets glorified. I was just walking around in the foyers this morning and looking at how beautifully the coffees were happening. And so as people arrive, without much thought, they can join the queue and end up and walk away with the coffee and sit and connect. In other words, they're being built up, they're connecting with each other. God, I think, is glorified when we connect like that and when we celebrate, not just in a church building, but anywhere around His name. But to make all of that happen, it needed a whole bunch of some really happy, friendly, smiling volunteers to say, I'd be willing to get here a little bit early, exchange money for that ticket. Some guys that have been on training on how to pull a shot, froth up the milk, and serve a cappuccino. And other people even more behind the scenes who were able to deal with the crisis of a deep freeze or fridge somehow having been switched off. I don't know how. Pete's going to try and figure that out. But the milk when they arrived this morning had all gone off. And so new milk needed to be bought so that I could enjoy, or you could enjoy a cappuccino just sitting chilling. So all of that happening behind the scenes results in me actually being fruitful. If I'm on the right fit, people being built up and God being glorified. It's not a full example, that, but it's a small example of what happens when we team together and how a local church can work and move forward. Now, the interesting thing is that this verse said each member belongs to all the others. In other words, all of us bringing our gifts together help the local church grow. Imagine if only 10% of the people considered CityHill their home, and thankfully this isn't the number, but let's say it was 10%. Said, I'm aware and I'm willing, I'm getting plugged in. It wouldn't be good for the rest of us because all of us were designed to actually be connected somehow, to be fruitful and to use our gifts. Interestingly, in the Bible, Not everybody felt up to exercising their gifts. There were a number of instances where people, I'm thinking of a guy like Gideon, where God had particularly given him a job to lead. And Gideon said, you know what, I'm not up for this. He said, I'm the least in my family, and my family is the least in our clan. And our clan, in case you didn't realize, is the least in the whole tribe, and our tribe is the least in the nation. That's a lot of leasts. So I don't think I'm cut out for this job, God. And through a series of events, God said, you know what, Gideon, this is the grace I've placed on you for this moment. I want you to do it. And a great victory comes because Gideon becomes aware and he becomes willing. Now, it's interesting. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes on these 7 things to look at these 7 things that Paul outlines. I don't think this is an exhaustive list of every single possible gift. But as we talk through these things, I'm pretty sure that you'll find some of them that fit. Incidentally, there's a whole lot of tools online. If you type in Romans 12, grace gifts, test. A whole lot of analysis tools that some range from 20 questions to 150 questions to answer some questions to help place you within these tools. But it's not it's not highly complex. So why don't we talk through some of them? He lists 7 things. He lists prophecy. Let me get back to my notes. Serving, teaching, encouraging, generosity, leadership, and mercy. Prophecy. I would say prophecy, and there could be a number of definitions, so I'm not saying this is the only one, but prophecy is a God-given ability to accurately and quickly perceive good and evil, to see what God's doing, to reveal present or future truth for understanding, correction, or edification. The picture I sometimes have of this, the idea of a prophetic gift, is not only being able to see something in the future. That's kind of the most obvious explanation of prophecy, is to see events in the future. But the idea I have of this gift is like, if God's wired you with this as a higher point, out of these 7 gifts, let's say they all had different scores. If this had a little bit higher, it's like there's an antenna and radar that seem to circle above the heads of people with this as a strong gift. And they pick up senses and like able to perceive good and evil in a situation, or able to impart truth, able to look down the road a little bit as God guides and directs. This is not just in a church, but perhaps in a work context, you've seen this gift operate. You've been just able, the radar's going, you've been able to sense something's wrong there. Something needs to be shifted. Something needs to be changed. It's possibly this gift which is operating. What about the gift of serving? Serving, we could possibly say, is the God-given ability to see or identify unmet needs involved in a task, to see available resources and make use of those, and to meet those needs and accomplish desired goals. In other words, this gift isn't, geez, I'm willing to go and kind of, be a doormat to anybody who's having a bad day. No. Gift of service, to my mind, is a God-given ability that you can see. You look at a situation, you think, man, there's a ball being dropped in, a ball being dropped in over there. I'm willing and aware that I have giftings. We need this and we need that, and we can work together, and I'm willing to get involved, to take resources and help fulfill the task. Often this gift is task-related, but it can also be people-related. A gift of helping serve and seeing there's some needs or people are stressed and getting involved. The gift of teaching. We could say that it's a God-given ability to discern, analyze, and deliver information and truth so that others can learn. Be able to assimilate something, some kind of information, and be able to impart it to others in a way that other people can learn from that. Now, if your view of teaching has been this, what happens on a Sunday, this is a very, very, very narrow view of this gift, in my opinion. But it sits inside a whole lot of people, the ability to take information. You just find yourself in a work context or wherever you're able to read and take in some complex things and able to make them simple and people understand. That for me is this kind of gift, busy operating. What about the gift of encouragement? We could say it's the God-given ability to give encouragement, comfort, consolation, and counsel in such a way that others feel helped and healed. Incidentally, if you're attempting to give encouragement, counsel, and guidance, but nobody's feeling helped, That gift maybe needs sharpening up, if that makes sense. It's not just on the delivery side. The people are actually built up. This word that's used, the Greek word that's used in encouragement, is other uses of the New Testament are the words asked, or an older word is beseeched. And so sometimes people with the gift of encouragement have got the gift of asking and roping other people in. You encourage others to get plugged in. You encourage others to join something or go somewhere. And you've just got this gift of like invitation. Or a gift of being able to fill other people with courage. When people are seeing dark clouds, hey guys, not so bad. I'm just going to pause here for a sec to say, I don't think Paul is suggesting that if you're strong in one of these gifts, you don't need anything else. For example, you've got the prophetic radar that you know operate fairly well. Okay, you don't need to ever encourage anybody. You never need to serve. You don't ever need to be generous. No, quite the opposite. All of them work together. All of these are some representation of Christ. But it's useful for us to know, you know what, that thing describes me fairly accurately. That's probably those one or two, maybe three things are slightly higher in my life. The gift of generosity. I came across this definition, which I thought was quite a good one. The ability to manage one's resources of income, that's financial, time, energy, and skills to give beyond what is considered to be a reasonable standard for giving. Whatever a reasonable standard is in your context or in a place or in a setting. You got this gift of generosity that just bubbles up and says, boy, I want to give more time. I want to give a little more finances. I want to give more. And there's tremendous, you see, whenever any of us are functioning in these gifts, there's huge joy in the giving, huge joy in the generosity. Rory Dyer, who's going to be with us for our city celebration in June on Comrades Evening, that Sunday. I've seen very few people with as much of this gift as Rory has. Just lavishes and draws such joy from lavishly, generously sharing with others. A whole lot of people have this gift. And a whole lot more maybe don't even realize that it is a gift. But how do we work and stir the gift of generosity? What about the gift of leadership? I love this definition. It says the ability to draw others together and work towards a common goal in accordance with God's purposes for the future. The ability to draw others together, work towards a common goal in accordance with God's purposes for the future. The gift of leadership. It's not like God gives it to just one or two and thousands, nothing. No. I would say that this gift operates in so many different unique ways, and perhaps you see it here and didn't even realize, boy, this is a gift. I can draw people together. We can work towards a common goal. I can figure it out, and we can go. For others who have this gift, maybe you've been reluctant. So I'm not sure I want to use that gift right here and right now. We spoke about that a little earlier, the danger of being unwilling for me. And what about the gift of mercy? Now, I've heard some people kind of jokingly say, the mercy gift, people who have this, they just want to go and visit sick people in hospital the whole time. I think a very, very small and a narrow definition. This gift of mercy, we could put it like this, is the ability to feel and to act upon genuine empathy for others. So that action could look like a whole lot of different things. For those who are suffering physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual pain. You've got the gift of mercy operating very often be distinguished by the ability to see particular pain in certain people or gaps in our society or in our culture. And something, it's like there's pain in your heart that drives you to do something. We could maybe call that the gift of mercy. Now, if we could take these 7 things and let's say there was perfect score was out of 100. Gift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as I spoke about those, you thought, okay, maybe 1, 4, and 6. Maybe I'm like an 85 with those, and the others might operate a little bit less. Question I'm suggesting we ask is, God, how do I put those to use more than I am already? And for some of us, it might be, well, you're functioning in your gift. For others, seated here, it's like, this is a completely unique idea. It's not one size fits all. Why don't you take the list of 7 things and say, God, what have you gifted me and graced me with? As I said, it's not exhaustive. Many other things, even that the Bible speaks about, but we're just using these 7 for today. And I'd like to suggest that when we find our gift mix, we start using it with faith, because that's what this verse also says, in everything we do that's connected to local church activities or our life as the church, in business and school, colleges, etc., we'll find those three things happen. I become fruitful, people grow, and God is glorified. This is how we were designed to work. I'm going to invite Nikki Kinder to come up now for a few minutes. Nix, where are you? Nikki is on staff with us. She's married to Phil. She's got 5 other people on staff with her. They've got stacks of volunteers and run an amazing job with CityHill Kids. She's going to share for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to finish off getting back to this form. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning, everyone. I have a couple of photos. Oh, there they come. This morning, obviously, I'm used to teaching children, so we have visual aids. But I wanted to introduce you to those of us that are on staff. So there is a picture of my team there. From my left, there's me, there's Michelle, we've got Jane in the middle, Yvonne and Taryn. And I have the privilege of heading up that team. And we have the privilege together here at CityHill of writing our own curriculum. And we really enjoy doing that. We enjoy praying, finding out from God, what is it that you want these kids of CityHill to learn? And we get to work with the kids on a Sunday, which is the exciting part. And so we get to know them. We get to see where they're at. What are they going through? And so we get to tailor-make our curriculum for the different age groups. And Steve wanted me just to share a little bit about what we do on a Sunday. And so there's a short little video clip I can just play while I'm talking of our youngest little minis. You can just pull the volume down on that. Thanks, guys. And they are our 2 to 3-year-olds. And I had a comment last week, I didn't even know you had something for 2-year-olds. So I thought I had to put that in there. They have their own little area where they have their praise and worship and their teaching and some beautiful little cabins. And those are our little stars over there. And then I know sometimes you guys get to hear us. You don't really know what's going on that side of the building. And so I just thought I would run through just a few things that we do. We actually run our own little version of church. We have our own production sheet on a Sunday, and we have our own praise and worship. So you'll notice there's a few of the kids upstairs, and we have birthdays, which are a big deal when you're little, and so we hand out a little treat and we celebrate those birthdays. And just like you guys welcome new visitors, so do we. We get to present the new members with a cap or a beanie, and they really look forward to that. So thanks to those parents who get hounded to become members. And we really do enjoy our time together. And just a couple of things that I wanted to mention this morning is that because we have around 300 children that arrive on a Sunday, we have a team of about 40 volunteers that serve on a Sunday. So there's about 100 of us all together that serve in CityHill Kids. And obviously there's various age groups and various different areas that they work in. And the main thing is that we get to celebrate being part of church, part of CityHill. And we encourage the children as well to get involved. We've got young boys and girls who are on the stairs welcoming people, doing our AV, doing our sound. And we get to encourage them that this is their church too. It's not just for mom and dad. And I know many of you have been involved and your children come through. But for those of you that maybe just hear us, please join us every week and pray for us. Pray for the kids. That they too will eventually give their hearts to Jesus. Just a few little highlights from last year. I can see they're flashing up behind me already. Is always our camp. We run a camp every year. And this last year we stumbled across an incredible tool to teach the kids to pray. And in fact, they are doing it again today. It's called prayer stations. So it's been a bit noisy that side this morning. The kids move around to different areas and pray for different topics. And obviously there's an activity involved when they pray. And we've been really excited to see these little prayer warriors develop. And in fact, it was what inspired the picture on the back of our shirts. It comes from Psalm 127, verse 4. which says, like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born to one's youth. And we really felt prophetically for CityHill kids that these children are the arrows, that we get to train them up, but we also get to release them into the community and into our families. And they're the ones that often go and speak to people that maybe you can't. They get to say at a family gathering, hey, can we say grace? When you know those people don't really do that. And so they are the arrows. And so we've got that on the back of our kids' shirts. And then one of the highlights this last year was also when we did a series on fasting and praying. And that was really exciting because a lot of the kids didn't know anything about that. And one of our team's biggest highlights is always our camp, and we have another one planned for this year. So we'll be going on camp in July, and back to Annalee for all our grade 4s to 6s. So it's the 20th to the 22nd of July. Some other plans for this year is we get to do Better Together, the same series that the rest of the church is doing. And we actually start our series next week, Sunday. So Sunday, the 4th of Feb, and we'll run for 8 weeks, but we'll cover the same topics that you do over your 6 weeks. So we're really excited about that. And then many of you will have noticed when you dropped off your children, everything is slightly different at the moment. So we've really been growing, and we need to keep our numbers in our classes manageable for our volunteers. So I mentioned our little stars already. They're at the back in the cabins. Our 3 and 4-year-olds are downstairs in All Stars. And then upstairs in Funky Town, we have our grade 0s or grade Rs through to grade 2s. And we've knocked a few walls down just to make some more space there. And then lastly, up on the top floor in our Eversky venue, we have our grade 3s through to our grade 6s. Although our grade 6s do have their own little drop-off and pick-up zone. So they do have some time where they get to be on their own. And so we're excited. We've discovered how to create some space so we can grow even more. And I wanted to just cover a couple of our safety things. This is always important, especially when you're a mom like me. We take our job very seriously. Although we have lots of fun, we do have a safety and security protocol in place. And I didn't think you knew about it. So all our volunteers, all our small group leaders, they all come through and have training. So that's all compulsory. Most of you know that your children have to arrive with a sticker. So we have our check-in area where every child and parent is issued with a sticker. And then those are matched together before they leave. So the right child goes to the right parent. All our small group venues all have a pane of glass if they're enclosed in a room, and it means whichever team member's on duty gets to move around and they can see through those windows just that everything's going okay. We also have a high-five policy or a side hug policy. We make sure that we never have one child left alone with a volunteer. So we've got quite a strict toilet policy for the little ones that need some help. And each Sunday we have a host who's on duty. And they stay at the desk, the CityHill Kids desk, for the duration of the morning, and they are equipped to deal with any emergencies. All of us on staff are also first aid trained, and we do have first aid kits on every floor of the CityHill Kids building. Have I left anything out? I think that's it. And then we have a set of rules, because if there's permanent chaos, it means children get hurt. And so we do run through these rules quite often with the kids. And we're down to 4 main rules. One person talks at a time. We play gently when you play. We use kind words with each other. And we listen when someone is talking. So those are our rules at CityHill Kids. And I'd just like to close this morning just with reading our vision for CityHill Kids for this year. It goes like this. We want to be a Bible-based children's ministry that teaches kids to know that God is real. It encourages their faith to grow daily and reaches out to the community in which we live. As a children's church, we want to foster healthy friendships between the children and mentorship between our volunteers and the children. We want to encourage more regular church attendance from families, as well as creating a culture of praying and supporting one another. So that's City Hill Kids pretty much in a nutshell. Thank you, Steve.